Colonel James Mitchell was on trial for war crimes after a 20-year military career. The media called him a monster, until an old translator stood up in court and shouted, "This man saved my life." That day, 99 more civilians came to say the same thing. Before we begin this powerful story of justice and true heroism, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure these voices are never forgotten. Colonel James Mitchell had built a distinguished 20-year military career. A West Point graduate, he'd served 3 tours in Iraq and 2 in Afghanistan. He'd earned the Bronze Star, Purple Heart, and numerous commendations. Soldiers didn't call him Colonel, they called him Sir, a sign of deep respect. Mitchell specialized in civilian protection. Units under his command had become legendary for protecting civilian populations in hostile zones. No innocent will be harmed was Mitchell's golden rule. In 2018, Mitchell was deployed near Mosul in northern Iraq. The region was one of ISIS's last strongholds. The operation was called Safe Harbor. The mission was to rescue civilians held hostage by the terrorist organization. But on March 15, 2018, everything changed. That day, a story broke that shook the world. 47 civilians killed in American airstrike, commanding officer Colonel James Mitchell. The footage was horrific. Destroyed homes, crying families, children's bodies. International media immediately labeled it the Mosul Massacre. Mitchell's photograph was on every newspaper's front page. The Butcher of Baghdad. This name became synonymous with Mitchell for days. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera. Everyone told the same story. An American military commander had bombed a civilian area, killing dozens of innocents. Mitchell was immediately arrested and referred to military court. The media had already tried and convicted him, but the truth was far more complex. After Mitchell's arrest, the world press wouldn't let go. Protests were organized, veteran groups supported him, but civil society organizations demanded blood. Major Sarah Collins, Mitchell's lawyer, had taken on the case. Collins was a military law expert, but this would be the toughest case of her career. "James," Collins said during their first meeting, "the media has already convicted you. Tell me what really happened that day." Mitchell sat rigidly in his cell. He hadn't spoken in 5 days. "Sarah, there's a lot to tell, but there's classified information. I have to wait for the Pentagon to declassify it." "James, classified information won't save you in court. Right now the whole world thinks you're a killer." Mitchell looked out his window. "I know, but I didn't kill civilians that day. I saved them." Collins was confused. "What do you mean?" 47 people died, that's true. But I saved 147 people. The media isn't talking about that." The first hearing was 3 weeks away. Prosecutor Major David Anderson was one of the toughest prosecutors in the Allied military court system. He'd built his career on victories in high-profile cases. Anderson's opening statement was harsh and decisive. Colonel Mitchell, on March 15th, gave F-16 aircraft under his command orders to bomb a civilian residential area. Result: 47 innocent civilian deaths. Silence filled the courtroom. Media representatives noted every word. Anderson continued, "This case is about military discipline versus human values. Colonel Mitchell sacrificed innocent lives for military success." Collins's defense would be difficult. The evidence she had was limited because most details of the operation were still classified. But Mitchell's story was very different from what was reflected in the media. On the second day of the hearing, an unexpected visitor came to the courtroom. An elderly Iraqi man, speaking broken English, requested translation assistance. The man introduced himself as Khalil Hassan, a former translator who had worked for the American Army. "I know Colonel Mitchell," Khalil said. "He saved my family." Collins immediately met with Khalil. What the man told her was shocking. "On March 15th, Khalil said, ISIS had raided my village. They took 200 people hostage, women, children, elderly. They were using them as human shields." Khalil's eyes filled with tears. Colonel Mitchell's unit came. They planned for 3 hours. ISIS terrorists were preparing to kill the civilians. What about the bombing? The bombing hit ISIS positions. But Colonel Mitchell first evacuated 147 civilians to a safe zone. 47 people. They couldn't be saved. We were too late. Collins couldn't believe it. Would you testify in this court? Of course. Colonel Mitchell is a hero. The media is lying. The next day, Khalil Hassan took the witness stand. The courtroom was packed. Colonel Mitchell, Khalil said, his voice trembling, saved my 8-year-old daughter from ISIS. He saved my wife. He saved my 3 sons. Prosecutor Anderson tried to object. Your Honor, this witness is biased. No, Khalil raised his voice. I'm telling the truth. Colonel Mitchell saved 147 people. 47 people died because ISIS killed them. Deep silence fell over the courtroom. After Khalil's testimony during the court recess, Collins received a phone call. Major Collins, this is Dr. Ahmed Rashid. I was also in Mosul that day. Colonel Mitchell saved my hospital too. Collins was surprised. Would you also like to testify? I'm not alone. There are 50 more people here. We're all people Colonel Mitchell saved. The next day, the courtroom presented a completely different scene. Over 50 Iraqi civilians filled the hall, accompanied by translators. Judge Richard Stone was an experienced military judge with 30 years of experience. He had never encountered such a situation. Court recognizes Dr. Ahmed Rashid. Dr. Rashid stood up. Your Honor, on March 15th, ISIS had occupied my hospital. They took 30 patients and 20 staff hostage. Colonel Mitchell's team came. They saved us. Another witness, Fatima al-Zahra. ISIS was going to kill me and my 4 children. Colonel Mitchell's soldiers carried us to the safe zone. Another, Omar al-Maliki. I was dying that day. Colonel Mitchell carried me to the helicopter with his own hands. Witness after witness, the story was the same. Mitchell and his unit had saved 147 civilians. The death of 47 people was ISIS's final act. They had killed the hostages while escaping. Prosecutor Anderson's case was beginning to collapse. Your Honor, these witnesses are organized. Judge Stone raised his hand. Major Anderson, are you claiming that 50 witnesses were organized? At that moment, a voice rose from the back of the courtroom. Your Honor! Everyone turned. A general from the Pentagon had entered the courtroom. General Robert Hayes, Mitchell's former commander. General Hayes, Judge Stone said, this is very irregular. Sir, I have classified documents. I received a declassification order from the President. These documents prove what Colonel Mitchell did that day. General Hayes opened the file in his hand. Operation Safe Harbor, March 15, 2018. Mission report. Colonel Mitchell and unit successfully extracted 147 civilians from ISIS custody. Enemy casualties, 23 ISIS fighters eliminated. Civilian casualties, 47 civilians executed by ISIS during retreat. Murmurs began in the courtroom. The general continued. Colonel Mitchell disobeyed direct orders. The Pentagon had given bombing approval, but Mitchell prioritized civilian extraction. That day, if he had followed orders, 200 civilians would have died. When the documents were presented to the court, the direction of the case changed completely. Classified reports from the Pentagon proved Mitchell's heroism. Prosecutor Anderson stood up. Your Honor, in light of this new evidence, the state drops all charges against Colonel Mitchell. Judge Stone was almost smiling. Charges dropped. Colonel Mitchell, you are free to go. But it wasn't over yet. Khalil Hassan stood up and began applauding. Dr. Rashid joined in, then Fatima, then Omar. Within minutes, 50 Iraqi civilians were standing and applauding. Media representatives were in shock. The Butcher of Baghdad was actually the hero of Mosul. Mitchell, after being lynched by the media for 6 months, had finally seen the truth emerge. Collins hugged Mitchell. James, why didn't you defend yourself earlier? Mitchell smiled. Sarah, I'm a soldier. I follow orders. The Pentagon classified it. I waited. General Hayes took the microphone. Colonel Mitchell, on behalf of the United States Army, we owe you an apology. And not just an apology. The general pulled out a small box. Colonel James Mitchell, for extraordinary heroism and life-saving actions in Mosul, Iraq, you are awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. Applause filled the courtroom. In the days following the trial, the media tried to correct the story. Hero wrongly accused headlines filled newspapers. Mitchell returned to his career, but this time he was a different man. Media scrutiny had made him stronger. 6 months later, he received a letter from Iraq, from Khalil Hassan. Dear Colonel Mitchell, my daughter started school this year. Her name is Hope. I named her Hope because you gave us hope that day. She wants to be a soldier like you when she grows up. Mitchell framed that letter and hung it on his office wall. News also came from Dr. Rashid. His hospital had reopened and was caring for 200 patients. Fatima al-Zahra's 4 children had won scholarships to America. Mitchell's story became a case study at West Point. It was taught in classes under the title Moral Courage Under Fire. But for Mitchell, the most meaningful moment came when he revisited Iraq a year later. A small park had been built in Mosul. At the park's entrance was a plaque in honor of Colonel James Mitchell and the 147 souls he saved. Sometimes heroes are called villains until the truth sets them free. Mitchell stood in front of that plaque, looking at the wall where 147 names were written, then at the memorial wall where 47 names were written. Both mattered. Sir? A young soldier approached him. Are you really Colonel Mitchell? Yes, soldier. Sir, they teach your story at the academy about moral courage. Mitchell smiled. What did you learn? The truth always wins, sir. It just sometimes takes time. Mitchell nodded. That's right, soldier. Truth always wins. That evening, Mitchell had dinner at Khalil Hassan's house. Khalil's daughter Hope, 7 years old, gave Mitchell a drawing as a gift. The picture showed a soldier and many children. Underneath it said, "My hero." Colonel, Khalil said, you saved 147 people that day, but you saved much more. You saved our faith in justice. Mitchell didn't answer. He just smiled, because he knew that sometimes being called a villain is the price of being a real hero. Sometimes the world needs time to understand what really happened. So I ask you, have you ever been wrongly accused of something you didn't do? Have you ever seen someone's reputation destroyed by lies, only to be vindicated later? Share that story in the comments. Because here at the Human Stories, we believe that truth is stronger than any headline, and real heroes don't always get recognized immediately. Colonel Mitchell saved 147 lives and was called a monster. The truth took 6 months to emerge. But when it did, it set everyone free. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember that truth always wins in the end, even when the whole world seems against you. Because the most powerful stories aren't about perfect heroes. They're about good people who do the right thing even when everyone thinks they're wrong.